All right, what's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 311, also called 311. My name's Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts. I'm here as always with...
I'm Ron.
And John. Are you just avoiding saying 311 so it doesn't sound like the band?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. That, yeah. Isn't it like a code for something too? Isn't it like a code for...
It's like sure a police code, right?
Yeah, it's like a police scanner code. I forget what it's for.
Is 311 not like something? Is that information or
the code is child pornography? Is the
child pornography? Wow.
Yeah, that's what came up when I looked
John
it up.
just put that out on the pod.
No, I'm just saying that's what came up. That's what came up when I looked it up.
Yeah, the band's name originates from the police code for indecent exposure in Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh wow.
There it is. There it is. So yeah, man, good to see you guys. We're going to go through a lot today on the podcast. I mean,
quite a bit.
We've got a lot of stuff that we've seen both on the television side of things, the movie side of things. But at the beginning, like as always, we'd like to try to do a couple little catch-up things, little news items, bits and bobs, whatever you want to call it.
I'm calling it
that, bits and bobs.
I like bips.
I like the idea that around the house you say to Aaron, like, we got some really good items for bits and bobs tonight, and we just don't know if that's what you
like. I'm really excited for bits and bobs tonight, Aaron. Like, you have no clue.
We got bits and bobs tonight, so it's really good.
The timing of this episode's good because I think one of the things I wanted to mention real quick, and I'm sure you guys will chime in here. Today we've kind of been talking a little bit about the Marvel saga of like release dates, the box office stuff. And, since we last recorded, there's been some comments about, the quote unquote, the interesting experiment that Bob Chapek, made a comment about with Shang-Chi's release, since they're doing that as a theatrical release window. And we were talking about like the Eternals and everything like that, but it does seem like we were talking a little bit before the show. They are pretty confident the Eternals maybe still comes out in November, because the day that we're recording this, the morning of actually, they released like a full trailer. I don't know if it says the final trailer, but it's a full trailer for the Eternals, which was finally, put into the world, which is exciting to see. What did you guys think of the full trailer for the Eternals?
My expectations are pretty low, man. This looks like kind of no offense to this. Like, I'm just saying, like, of all the ones I've seen so far, probably the most generic. It feels like a Superman origin story, kind of, sort of. I think I'm kind of superheroed out. But the good part about that is when November comes and this feels different than anything, it feels like it's not a part of the MCU. Although they've addressed something in the MCU in the trailer, and that feels good.
Right.
I don't know how I felt about the visuals. I don't know how I felt about the monsters. I don't know how everything looked a little rubbery. The thing is, our TVs are better than they used to be, right? So when we'd see a visual, it'd be like, "Oh my God, that's a transparent dog wolf thing trying to bite a person." Now you're like, that looks like something just placed on top of all the beautiful 4K footage. And that is my problem with the trailer. The concept I'm in, but the visuals look a little weird to me.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think that the action does look a little stylized. I think about half the time I thought, similar to what you thought, these effects look kind of fakey, and the other half of the time I thought, well, this is actually kind of, there's some kind of atmospheric, the fact that these are, you said Superman, kind of godlike heroes that we're getting. There's something about their powers being like reality breaking, and just the look and feel of them as being something that doesn't fit in reality. I see a little bit of that as intentional, and a little bit of that is just the Marvel level of CGI, which honestly, shot to shot, can look excellent or very fake. Even in some of the movies that we love, there can be CGI stuff that you'd say rubbery, that is exactly that. So I don't know. I think, to me, what this trailer really did was, it's the first trailer. Well, it's only the second look we're getting at this stuff, but it's the first thing I've seen for this movie that I thought kind of properly sells the concept to people that don't want to dig into it and read about it and that kind of stuff. Like, we're a little bit more plugged into this business. So the first trailer I thought was a little more mysterious, and this one was a little more like placing this story at a certain time in the MCU and commenting on how it fits in. And I thought that was kind of a clever thing to do, because I think those are the questions that people have about this type of story. Okay, you're introducing these godlike characters. The first question people have is, well, where have they been all this time? Why haven't they been helping? So I think it's smart that the trailer addresses that. And I think I might be a little bit more optimistic than you, Ronald, but I'm kind of at the same level of just, I'm ground floor with this. I don't have a lot of expectations for these characters. Like they don't have name recognition with me down to a person. So as I see the actors embodying the characters, I'm really going to be kind of experiencing it much more as just a movie. And as just a movie, it does seem like it's presenting us a mix of familiar looking things with honestly some new stuff and some new ideas that seem really exciting and cool to me. But I felt like this trailer really did. I came away from it going, okay, I kind of see what this movie is going to be. I at least get a little bit of the shape of it and what the characters' attitudes are going to be like. And I have to say, I'm kind of touched. Maybe it's just because everyone's been having such a rough time on Earth lately. I'm kind of touched at the idea of like aliens, like going, they're not so bad. Like some godlike aliens kind of loving us or caring about us in this, even this aloof parent kind of way. But like just that idea, I feel like it's got some juice to it and might be very emotional to see the way that these again, godlike creatures kind of reckon with us and all our flaws, and all that stuff. So that sounds promising, but yeah, there is something strangely like they're still trusting that you're just going to come see this because it's Marvel on some level.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It feels like a weird breaking point. Like I think we've been talking about this on our Facebook thread, but I mean, like with every step forward, like that we're taking with these movies as they come out, it does seem like there's going to be a bigger and bigger challenge, maybe until they get to Spider-Man and maybe it's a little bit of a different story. Yeah. But like, with Shang-Chi and like, or even what we saw with the Suicide Squad for the DC side of things, but with Shang-Chi coming out and the Eternals and what happens in between those, even Venom, if it comes out still in October for Sony, I just think like it's going to be like a really big test of like the willingness to continue to go and see these movies at the peak that we were before. Right, not we, because we're going to see them, but like the collective we of like the movie going audience that is going to push these movies to be, as successful as they can be in whatever the box office looks like now. Now the movie itself, for me, I actually find that maybe like I'm the most positive of the crew on the trailer, at least. Because I kind of feel like the trailer kind of completely switched my feelings around a little bit. I feel like I was very kind of low expectations, really didn't have much interest outside of just like the awesome cast. But I think like what John was mentioning, like the idea of the quick like line or two in the trailer to kind of give us the scope of the things at play that would really pull these characters into our world. I thought was like a really smart thing, like John was saying, like to kind of just put that in the trailer to make sense of why these people matter now when they matter not like when, the snap happened or whatever else in the prior 10 years of Marvel. But, I feel like ever since Guardians and like, the no idea who these people are kind of thing for me, I feel like I give the benefit of the doubt, even like reading some of the early word on Shang-Chi and, what some of the buzz around that is, even though the early stuff is always pretty positive based on who they show the movie to. But I just feel like there's still, for me, I've still got some juice, like with this goodwill that like, I'm just so in, and I'm still so high off of Endgame and Infinity War that like, I think, I have to see what happens with these next couple of movies that aren't the characters that we know. Yeah. It's like there's almost like just a curiosity, and also, it's kind of coasting on this buy-in that I've had because of how much I enjoyed, especially the last few run of the Marvel movies. Yeah. But I thought the trailer looked really good. I do agree with you. Some of the special effects from shot to shot can look a little questionable. Wonky. But I gotta think like at the end of the day, when this thing comes out in 3 months, especially Chloe Zhao's involvement, like there's got to be something special about this movie. I'm gonna bet on it. I'm gonna go for it and think that there's gonna be something special about this when we eventually get it. But yeah, we'll see.
I think you already feel it in a little bit of the kind of otherworldliness of some of the stuff that they're just not giving us a lot of in the trailers, because I think that pacing, like that's the thing that can feel unique when we see this movie, is the pacing and the feel of it and everything. And is it going to feel kind of like schlocky and comic booky, or is it going to feel kind of mysterious and cosmic? And I think that's a question. And I think she might split the difference between the kind of fun cosmic that James Gunn gave us and then this sort of truly mind-bending cosmic that this movie seems to be playing with. Like there's this one shot of a sort of celestial being in the trailer that really does feel kind of otherworldly and like scary in the way that like angels and demons would be if you really saw them, like something that would just blow your mind. You wouldn't know what you were looking at. And there's this one being that seems to be maybe the being they're taking their orders from in that trailer. That is like, oh, we're getting at that other crazy side of the MCU that was hinted at in Guardians and a little bit in maybe Captain Marvel. But there's some, and now that they have everything, I mean, there's some characters with, a lot of people thought maybe that was Galactus in the trailer. It's not Galactus, but it could be some other sort of, super advanced level character that they just haven't done much with in these movies yet. So I'm curious to see what they do.
We'll see. What's next?
I wanted to kind of touch on this because we're all kind of collectively Star Wars fans. What the hell did you think about Star Wars Visions, the anime-based, I think there's 7 stories that they're doing, this anthology of cool stories where they got a bunch of anime studios to tell these unique Star Wars stories. Would you think about the trailer? How you feeling about, it's coming out on Disney Plus and it's animated, completely animated.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't see them, so I can't say. I saw you mentioning them on the thread. I saw the Animatrix stuff mentioned, but I didn't have a chance to see them. What did you guys think of them?
I think it looks incredible, man. I liked kind of what the Animatrix did for the Matrix and kind of told these like stories that were pretty loyal to the main storyline and gave some ideas, put some ideas about there. One of the ones I saw was like, what if somebody in the Star Wars world was like a shogun who had a lightsaber? Like, come on, like it's a cool idea. Like, what if there was a planet that kind of embraced this sort of ideology about shoguns and fighting face to face? And I think it's really cool. So we'll see.
I mean, the animation, it looks really striking. I think with anime there are certain little stylistic things that, depending on the project, I can either be totally down with it because of how inventive and exciting and cool the animation can be, or I can get really it's hard for me to get in with those fast talking characters that have the sort of high cartoony voices. Like it's just a stylistic thing. I don't mind the beads of sweat. There's just certain kind of things that, that I'm down with and certain things I'm not. But I think that there was some really cool uses of animation to indicate like force powers or just visuals that we haven't seen before. There's some kind of beams that are shot at someone with a lightsaber, and they wrap around the lightsaber and they kind of reflect them back. Just it's stuff that seems kind of like it'll be fun to see someone with that kind of that imagination built on animating things where you can basically do whatever you want. Seeing that person use Star Wars as the kind of grist for the mill. And there look like there's a few different visual styles represented. So yeah, very much like Animatrix or that recent robots, what's it called on Netflix?
Oh yeah, the one about the different love and robot,
love, sex and robots, love, war and robot, whatever it is. But like an anthology with different styles of animation where you get like sort of just again, and with Star Wars, this is a great thing to do, which is just to say, let's have some unique looks at this world. I mean, I think that's what Star Wars needs right now anyway, is just to be that expansive world of storytelling that you have, that's showing you things you haven't seen before, So
absolutely.
So I'm definitely interested, even if I don't know if I'm going to love every episode of it.
What else is going on?
Well, we're talking about animation, and we skipped over to Star Wars, but let's maybe double back to Marvel with animation and give our thoughts on the first 2 episodes of What If? ... question mark. I like it.
I mean, I like it too. I think I like it more this week because just basically because Chadwick is involved, and I mean it's tough to watch though because it's like that's the last thing.
Yeah.
and like you kind of just are like, I kind of want to see a lot of that, you know, that whole story. You know what I mean? Like I would watch a whole series of that idea, that whole what if scenario. But I don't know. I love this what ifs, the what if scenario, the what if ideas, and like possibly where the rest of these are going from what I've, you know, read a little bit further into the not like spoilers, but like, you know, what the episodes are or who's in each episode. It seems it's just really interesting. Maybe you guys know this, like, is this supposed to tie into the MCU proper, or is just kind of like a separate little like cool idea?
There's been rumors that they will, but nothing confirmed.
Well, the couple things is that the way that they talked about it changed a little bit after Loki finished up the season. I saw them referring more to like dropping more references to a multiverse and dropping more references to just that terminology. So I think that we are meant to kind of read into it as it exists outside of everything. It's just an anthology, but if you look at the vague details of it, it fits this idea of there's all these splintered realities that we now know are happening, quote unquote, in the quote unquote happening in the MCU.
Right.
So I think that what Ronald said is true. I think the door is open for them to like maybe even between a couple episodes have a storyline that seems like there's some awareness of another story, or there's some awareness that this isn't the way things are supposed to be or something. I think the door is definitely open for them to do that between now and whenever this first season wraps up. I know that they've talked about bringing back certain scenarios for the second season, like the Captain Carter scenario is supposed to be one that they're interested in returning to in the second season. So that might be an indication that it's not just a standalone one shot, but that they have the idea that there's an alternate reality that they're talking about. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I think the T'Challa as Star-Lord episode gave you this idea, and they played around with it in Captain Carter too, is you can't just say, like, you can't have the alternate scenario just be unequivocally better. Or it makes it feel kind of like you can't just have Captain Carter be a better version of Captain America. You know what I mean? You had to have that story kind of go in a similar way that had some tragedy involved. I thought I thought the joke of T'Challa just being so awesome and so influential and so good that everybody turned out better for being around him than they did around Star-Lord. I thought that was a funny joke, but that does kind of make you feel like, well, then what was the story of Star-Lord then? Like, why are we stuck with Star-Lord when everybody would be so much happier if it was T'Challa? I think that friction is interesting, and I think that I could see them building towards something, but at this point they haven't confirmed it. They've just sort of teased that idea that yes, there may be some, like, I would imagine that through the character of the Watcher, we might get a little bit more of an indication of like his perspective on there's more of these multiversal ideas than were before, or this one's not supposed to happen, or I've got to set things right or something. But yeah, they can just go full anthology with it and have it sort of just fit in with the current goings on in the MCU, simply because, like I said, even the visuals at the beginning of What If, they suggest that kind of branching realities, branching off of something. So I think the door is open. I think I may have liked Captain Carter better than either of you guys did, but I think the storytelling was just more assured in the second episode. It felt more like a story that picked up and just knew what it was doing, rather than with Captain Carter. There was an opening section where, like, with the narration, there was almost like still images, and it just felt like they didn't quite know. And I still don't know that they've worked out exactly what is the format of the storytelling for these shows. They feel very animated, but and like real stories, but they also feel a little bit like we're getting a different style of storytelling because we're getting something that's so narrated. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, he'll just stop and say, now let's go back to the beginning, or now let's fly. It's like, I feel like maybe we'll see over the course of these eight episodes or however many that they get they really nail the style of what this new form of, because this is something they haven't done in the MCU yet. These little half-hour stories that kind of have to get you from A to Z in that amount of time,
Yeah.
I'm so far, I'm not really feeling it. It's the beats are kind of clunky. I'm not feeling it. It's just, I feel weird because, like,
that's okay.
I'll watch it and then I'm like, okay.
Well, that's why I said I like it and not I love it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like like I said, it doesn't quite feel like they've nailed what the actual episodes are. It's almost like the idea, everything exists in this cool state as an idea, but when you really put it into execution, like you can't tell how long what you're watching is supposed to be when it's going on. You know, you don't have a natural sense of like what an arc would be. But I like how cool they've done the whole idea of like just who can pop up. Like in that second episode, it's shocking what characters are in it, you know, and so if they can keep that up of like sort of surprising you with who they can bring in, then I think that'll make it fun and watchable. But yeah, will I get to the end and love it, or will I get to the end and just be like, well, that was a thing I watched? I don't know.
that's kind of what I'm saying. Like I'm kind of feeling that way, even though like I said, I like the second one more, like considerably more.
You know what this feels like to me? Go.
What?
Sorry.
No. I'm saying I was going to say like I think that's my concern is going to like where the other shows that they've kind of done so far. I do feel the feeling of it like feeding into phase 4 in some way. Yeah. Where this is like it feels a little different in terms of like the way it's being digested. It's like it does seem like it's going to be like that's just that was like a thing I watched and it was cool. Like it feels just more like common programming or something on Disney Plus.
Yeah. So there's Monsters University, the movie, and then there's Monsters University on Disney Plus, and this feels like that version. It feels like I don't know if you guys have watched any of the Avengers Assemble cartoons.
I mean, I remember that show, but I didn't watch a lot of it.
Those are incredible. That's what they should just put out. There's no that like I don't understand why this is happening. It's like the writing isn't on par with the movies, and it doesn't feel quite as like the stakes or the what ifs are like, okay. So far. They've been like, all right, what happened? That'd be all right. And I think that when I've watched Avengers Assemble, which really does deal with those characters in a pretty fleshed out way, I feel like I could enjoy it just as much if it wasn't done in that animation style, those writers, I'd enjoy it just the same. So
I really like I like the animation a lot on this, but I also think it's very odd and it can be very it can make the pacing feel very strange. But I think the look of it, and I mean, I don't know, it's just like the whole thing is such a mixed bag. It's like so some of the image I'm looking at, I'm like, this is really beautiful, and then some of the time I'm like, this is that awkward combination of computer generated imagery and hand drawn where it doesn't feel quite as alive as true hand drawn animation, you know, but it doesn't fully have the sleek quality of computer generated stuff. So, but I don't know. I think that it has like a cool kind of antique-y look to it. Like there's something about it that looks old fashioned, and there's something about it that just the colors and stuff. I find it really an attractive show a lot of the time. And like I think it's just there's a lot to like, but like is is where it goes for me. I'm just I did not have the feeling of like, I mean, again, it could have been super cool, I guess, but I also think it's like they want to get this idea out there, and sometimes I think we're going to run into that with Marvel, where it's like they've got the ability to execute an idea, and it doesn't matter if it's the most engaging thing. It's more that they got this, you know, the what if concept. They're going to kind of push it into being a show, and maybe by the second season they'll have really hammered out the kind of lumpy storytelling issues that we're talking about, where it feels a little odd. It's like it almost feels like it's a preliminary version, or it's or I don't know. There's just something strange about these, you know, and maybe it's just that I'm not used to seeing these characters animated, but I don't think that's it. I think there is something kind of odd about the feel.
Yeah, it's weird. It's the tone of it is weird. It doesn't feel the same as those characters. Like, all right, so we'll see what happens. I'm still in for it. I'm gonna watch next week's and see what that pans out. That may be better than these first two. I feel like they're gradually gonna get better, and I mean, I think they did it in kind of that order on purpose. Like you're like, okay, Chadwick, his character was great, you know, but like the whole thing didn't feel quite as, I don't know, but like. It'll get better and better, I think.
Yeah,
maybe so. Yeah, we'll see.
So,
what if we end up really liking it?
What if?
That's a very good question.
What else? We got a lot of TV shows we want to mention before we start talking about some movies. So let's bang out some of these movies. I mean, the TV shows. So, Reservation Dogs is a new show. You want to talk about that, Ronald? You brought that up. We kind of all checked that out.
Yeah, Reservation Dogs is a show about I think it's in Oklahoma, A reservation with a group of friends that are up to no good, and essentially at a crossroads in their lives where they want to. The goal is to move to California, and they have these lofty plans once they get to California. But to do it, they break the law a little bit, and they get in a little bit of trouble. And these are super lovable characters. The town just feels very like lived in and fun, and but you feel the residual like, how did this happen? How did these reservations come to be? But
Right.
the humor is Taika sort of centric. I mean, even though he's not directing it, I know he's producing it.
He
The
wrote it
tone,
too.
he wrote it too. Okay, the tone of it is just kind of really what you want in a Taika Waititi sort of production. So I'm a big fan. I'm 3 in. I thought they were kind of flawless. Like I enjoyed all three, and like more than I would have ever imagined, to be completely honest with you. And I love seeing Native Americans on the TV screen, man. It feels like warms me up. Like we just talked about the Peacock show with Ed Helms, Rutherford Falls.
Yeah, actually, you brought it up and we didn't really talk about it. Like you had seen it.
Oh,
You had seen when you had started watching it. You mentioned it like
yeah,
in one of our
man.
recaps at the end. I've seen it since then too, and I was kind of connecting the two shows in my mind as well for that reason, but also because two of the episodes of Rutherford Falls were called Studis and Skoden. What is it? Skoden? Yeah. Skoden and Studis, which is like, let's do this and let's go then. But there were two episodes of Rutherford Falls that were named that. And then I noticed the characters in this show saying that a lot. Studis, Skoden, or
One of
Kaden.
the main characters from Rutherford is in she's like the receptionist at the hospital
That's a
episode.
hospital, yeah.
Yeah, so like there's like some interesting.
But in both cases, you're getting like that native presence in your entertainment that I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, we've been missing out on not just these great actors, but like, because the guy, not that we're talking about Rutherford Falls, but the guy who plays Terry on that show, Michael Gray Eyes, I think is his name. Is great. I love this guy. And I looked and he's like in his 50s, and I know I've seen him in other things, but I was like, why is this guy in his 50s?
He looks so young, by the way.
But well, yeah, he does. But I'm just saying, why is like I thought maybe he was going to be younger than that because I haven't seen him in enough, But
how have we not heard of this guy?
And so
great.
across the board, you said it makes you feel warm inside. That is exactly it. It's like, and it's not like that's reason enough. I mean, sometimes it's reason enough to watch something. It's just that feeling of the representation piece. It's something that we talk about a lot. It's important. But when it's done with such an eye towards entertaining and an eye towards creating characters that feel really relatable and interesting, but also that they have specific things going on, stories that we haven't seen before, stories that you couldn't tell with any other characters. I think it's really exciting, honestly, to see this. And the Taika Waititi flavor is there. I would say by the third episode, the most recent one that I saw of Reservation Dogs, it really became like, that's when I was like, okay, I think I really love this show. That had such a great, the stuff with what's his name? Uncle Frank or something. What is it? The name of the guy that they go around with?
Yeah. God, I forget
Uncle Larry. Anyway.
They knocked out. Yeah.
He was just great. He was just great. And it's like that felt like that. This kind of world that we're exploring and these kind of adventures that these characters go on, it feels to me a little bit like other shows that we've raved about, like Atlanta or Dave, where maybe an episode is going to take you on a completely different ride than you've ever been on before, watching any show. You know what I mean? And that's great.
Yeah, man, it was very, very good.
Yeah. I think, it's funny because I think Taika seems to be one of like the busiest people in show business.
Yeah.
So like you see his name attached to so many things and you're like, well, at what level? Because like, he's got like the #1 movie, he's in the Ryan Reynolds movie that came out, the Free Guy movie. Yeah. And apparently I heard is like really good. Like I want to see that movie now.
Yeah. He's in Suicide Squad.
Right. Suicide Squad. He's what, Ratcatcher 1. But I'm just saying, like, you see these news items and like he's everywhere. But this is one that's kind of been in development for a bit, and like his name has always been a part of it, and he's one of the creators and co-writers. And I don't know if I don't think they've released all the director lists. I don't know if he's directed any of the episodes of it. But it's just like I feel like even in the first episode, it has that same heart that like you see in all the movies that we love of his, and even even some of the other shows he's done. As silly and funny as like What We Do in the Shadows is, it still has like this through line of heart. And this series is a little more serious in ways. There's something happening in the background. There's this friend that they've lost that kind of comes up quite a bit, and it's a lot of the motivation of them wanting to get out, like Ronald said, and wanting to go west or go to California, and part of the motivation for why they do all these little mini crimes to earn money to do that by any means that they can. But I mean, like, the motivation is so pure in that way, and I think that's something that Taika, he's just magical. Like, he does it so well, and I'm not to take away from his co-creator or co-writer by any means, but like the common denominator of a lot of these things that we love regularly that he's involved with is him. And I mean, I think he's so special, and I just really love to watch or just kind of immerse myself in anything that he's involved in, and this is no exception. And yeah, I can't wait to watch the fourth episode, which I think we have access to, so hopefully we can talk more about that on episodes to come up. What else? With only one episode, but we wanted to mention Heels. We finally got to see the episode of that. I know we talked about it a little while ago. We brought it up on the podcast, but that is, I didn't realize it, but that's like created and co-written by the guy that is like the showrunner non-officially for Loki, which
and the screenwriter for Doctor Strange,
right?
Too.
The Multiverse of Madness.
And it comes from Rick and Morty too, right? Is that not?
He does. Yep. But yeah, Heels is a Starz series that had its premiere last week. Episode 2 comes out, I believe, this Sunday. But this is just basically Stephen Amell and Alexander Ludwig. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Plays two brothers that basically kind of who are a part of this amateur wrestling federation, trying to keep the business alive, keep their families alive, in some way trying to make it big to the big leagues, and get out of the same kind of thing, kind of get out of the town and do something bigger and better. But the pilot, the premiere episode, or the premiere of the show, is really kind of digs into the differences that these two brothers, kind of put into their work, put into their career as wrestlers, as amateur wrestlers, and kind of what they're...
And like the summary logline would be like, in the wrestling, their characters, the brother played by Alexander Ludwig is the face, and Stephen Amell is the heel, right? And then, but as people, they're kind of opposite. That Stephen Amell is more of a solid guy, and his brother, seemingly, and his brother's a little bit more of a heel. I mean, that's kind of like that's like the hook of the show to some extent, is that you're seeing the difference between their wrestling identities and the people they are behind the scenes.
Pretty damn cool. And it focuses on one huge aspect of wrestling that I think is amazing, kayfabe, which really existed kind of, I'd say, before like 96, 97. The idea that like wrestlers were not to be seen around each other. It was like that with sports too. Like if you think about kind of like basketball and football back in the day, like even in the 90s, like two rival teams, if you find out LeBron was having a drink with Carmelo Anthony, or that Hulk Hogan was hanging out with, Jake the Snake Roberts, that was like the worst thing that could ever happen, because it broke this sort of agreement that these people didn't get along. It's really cool. So like the theme of the entire show is actually based on that whole like kayfabe idea, which I thought was pretty damn cool. And maybe because I'm kind of slightly obsessed with wrestling, and I have friends that are in the industry, and wrestling's one of those things, like, it's a little different than like professional sports, because other professional sports, I'll say, because the chance of you going from like amateurs to pros is a lot harder, because there's a lot more wrestlers. But when it happens, you can go from like wrestling in the gym one day to being in the spotlight somewhere on WWE or, now AEW. So I thought that was really cool, man. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty pretty damn good.
Steve, are you a wrestling guy the way that Ronald is? Do you think that feeds into your feelings about the show?
I mean, not to the level Ronald still is. Like back in the day, I like, my teenage years and early adulthood, I was really into it. Definitely kind of drifted out of it. I don't really follow it anymore. I mean, even with the rise of like AEW and things like that, I've kind of seen it from the sidelines. But this level of wrestling, like this, I have some friends that are like in, down in the South that kind of participate in this level of wrestling. And I see them, them posting stuff and then, all their self promotion and stuff. And it rings true to what the show is showing. And like you said, Ron, on our thread, like it seems like pretty accurate, or it feels very true to life in terms of like how devoted and how committed some of these people are to the characters that they play in the ring and in and out of the ring. But I definitely like, I'm way interested in like any story about wrestling. I'm not tied into it anymore. Like Ronald is still, but in the, when I was younger, like it was all I cared about, to be honest with you. Like every like if you go through my old room, my parents, or like the storage, like every wrestling magazine I still probably have, and like all the freaking memorabilia, like we would drive all around the Delmarva, like to go to the shows when they came town, WWF and WCW. And I don't know, it was the best, but the show is very interesting because I really like Stephen Amell. Like I've always, like, I wasn't like I didn't watch it religiously, but I really liked him on Arrow. And just him, like in general, like I think he's a pretty cool guy, and I like how he kind of lives his life.
Great wrestler.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Very physical. Very beyond being physically in shape. Like he's super into all that stuff in his personal life.
Yeah,
like I follow him on social media, and so anytime he's a part of something, I'm curious to see it. And when we saw this trailer, like it was very interesting to me to follow, and hopefully the show is as good as the first episode was, because I thought it was pretty great. I don't know that I like love the brother, Alexander Ludwig. Like I feel like I felt that way about him in really everything I've seen him in. But I think it actually works in the show because he kind of comes off a little, I'm not phony. Like, he kind of comes off a little superficial about it at times.
Yeah.
Which I think is maybe some of his acting, but I don't know. It kind of like is masked a little bit by that character, which I think is to the benefit of the show.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not really a wrestling person and never really have been. So I have a little bit more of even an outsider perspective to this, but I think I know all this. I mean, I think culturally you don't have to be into it to know some of the baggage of wrestling, and you know what I mean, the way that this show deals with that idea that, like, of course people know that it's scripted. That's not the point. Like people that don't like wrestling like to say it's so fake, and it's like, well, the people that watch it know that it's scripted. That doesn't change what's happening is still happening in front of you. It's still unfolding like a serialized drama almost for people. Like, so the people that just don't get wrestling frequently sort of think that that's the gotcha moment. Well, can't you tell how fake it is? This show deals with that head on, of like, don't say fake, but also, we all know that it's scripted. But I think for me, I mean, I felt like maybe it was across the board. Maybe the acting felt a little kind of clunky and a little cheesy to me. Like I thought Stephen Amell even was a little bit like, I don't know that his range, I think he's got a charm to him that I think is going to help this character. And but I thought there was something, like I was thinking, I wonder if this show's going to slowly get better as people are more comfortable in their characters, and it's like stretching out a little, because the first episode was very packed with exposition and really felt like it was trying to get someone who'd never heard of wrestling up to speed with some of this stuff. But I do think maybe that's a necessary thing. Like a lot of that terminology, even heel and face and that kind of stuff, is like, if you haven't watched documentaries about wrestling, you might not have heard that stuff. So I think that I like the milieu. I'm very interested in the sort of colorful characters that can come into this world because of the sort of outsized people and some of the actors they have coming in. Like I don't always love Mike O'Malley, but he really seems to be playing an interesting looking over the top character in future episodes. So I'm curious about that. So I really do think maybe I'll give it another episode or two to see if it has that, like, once you get past the pilot, it really starts cooking along. But I kind of felt like it was somewhere between like a prestige drama and a sort of made for USA show from the early 2000s or something. It just didn't quite go over into that, oh, this is so well made that I've just got to love it. I do think that a lot of the stuff that is interesting to look at, though, like the wrestling matches themselves, are shot in a way that feels really like the narrative that comes through that, and the ability to like see the physicality and all that stuff. I do think it has an eye for some of those things. So yeah, I'm really interested to see if, like I said, in episode 2 or 3, if it starts to feel like that, just kind of assuredness that you feel when a really good drama clicks into to what it's going to be. But I agree with you about the brother being the most sort of annoying presence on the whole show.
Annoying, man.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, like, just, I don't know, something about him, like, he went from like a kid actor to like a massive beast of a man. And like, I don't know that, like, I don't forget what he was in a bunch of stuff as a kid, or like a younger kid. Yeah. And then he was like, I think he was in one of the Hunger Game movies, and it was like, holy shit, he's like huge. And he's not like, and he still acts like a kid at times, you know, like
he was one of the guys with the buzz cut. He was like one of the big guys from Hunger Games.
I think so. I'm like, he's in one of the Hunger Game movies for sure.
When you said that, my brain was like, he must have been one of the guys with the buzz cut. Like,
you'll see him as soon as you look it up. But
crazy.
He's been in a lot of random stuff, but I don't know. But hopefully it's better. I think it works for the character. I think you're right, John. I think it does probably settle into like this intersection. Like, I don't know that it's going to be like a prestige drama. Yeah. I think it's going to have a little more of a, you know, some of that sensation that some of these shows have, that maybe a USA or a TNT or, you know, TBS shows kind of sometimes carry.
Well, Starz kind of does that. They did the Spartacus show. They do the slightly more like sweaty, you know, macho shows, and this definitely has.
But they can also be, but they can be like more vulgar and more explicit too, because they don't, you know, the rating doesn't matter. So, but yeah, I don't know. So that was Heels comes out on Sunday. So episode 2 comes out this week. If you want to watch along with the pod, we'll keep up with that show as well. What else?
Let's talk about Dave season 2, which just wrapped up.
What can we say about Dave that we haven't already said?
Well, in a way, it's interesting that they did that with the second season, that they basically got to the end of the second season, and I feel basically the way I did at the end of the first season.
Yeah.
Which is both like a sign of maybe a style of storytelling they're doing, but also just the fact that they know how to leave you feeling that way that they want you to feel. And I think they did it a couple times this season, where an episode took a turn and it just left me feeling so uplifted compared to where it was going. And then there's the episodes where it doesn't do that, and it swerves in the other direction, and it ends on a note of ambiguous feelings and negativity. And then there've been a couple other episodes that were just crazy. Like, I didn't think I would be watching Dave, and I would be worried that, oh my God, are they going to kill Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Right.
You know, and I won't spoil it for you and say whether they do, but I'm just going to say this is that kind of show where literally I sit down to watch it and I almost am nervous. As much as I love this show, I almost get nervous because I really don't know what they're going to do. Like, I don't know what kind of show it's going to be. Is it going to be sad? Is it going to be funny? Is it going to be scary? Is it just going to be weird? That second to last episode was like a journey into the mind that was very weird. But yeah, no, I think that Dave, how are they doing what they're doing? This is just such an unusual show, isn't it, Ronald? Like, there's nothing else quite like it.
I think that Dave, Lil Dicky, seems to be pretty acutely aware of who he is as a person and his impact. And some of that is like, there has to be some like blowback for like culturally what you're doing, which is basically coming in as a visitor into a space that's dominated by minorities, let's say black and brown people, and finding a way in a way that doesn't feel destructive or like he's stealing or something like that. But he's trying to, right? But all the while making these ripples that you're not conscious of anyway. It really takes conversations to find those things out about yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do like I didn't like it at first, but I do like that he really goes through the mud with it before he realizes that he's made the mistakes that he's made. Because that's essentially what it's real. Like, you aren't going to have an epiphany about how poorly you treat someone right away. It takes a little while. And although it feels like some of the same beats towards the last two episodes as the first, it did feel fresh somehow. I don't know how that happened. How I landed kind of in this, like you said, in the same place emotionally. And I was like, I got here a different way than I did before. And I really enjoyed that. It's just a well-made show.
Well, so much of it's about him and Gaeta. So go ahead, Steve. I was just going to say that friendship is crucial to both seasons, the way the finale unfolds.
Yeah, I think this season in general did a lot more, and it kind of plays in a lot of the different types of episodes that you were talking about, like where it's really kind of giving more perspective on his privilege and the exploitation of his friends and the people around him that he calls friends and that he kind of keeps in his circle. And, and then you see that in episodes like where you get to spend time, when he was at his job with the woman that's the filmmaker. What's her name? Do you remember what
her name's not
character's name is? I mean, the fact that you spend more time with these characters, you see kind of how they get exploited for who they are, and they've even been exploited by him.
Right.
And that perspective is wrapped around the season pretty masterfully, I think, because it kind of all comes around on him in that final episode when he has that blow up with Gaeta and at his house, and like completely lacks the perspective and the openness to understand what's happening, because it's something that he doesn't understand or didn't think was in the first case. You know what I mean? Like when he walks into that situation and he pegs a certain thing, and there's two people there that you've seen this whole season be exploited in ways that in some ways he's responsible for, and in some ways he's exploiting, for his own career. That scene I thought was amazing, like at the house, and we're watching Gaeta kind of unravel a little bit, but he's got himself in check. The character arc of that guy in this show is just amazing. Yeah. And I think that's why the finale works so well.
Yes.
Is because of Gaeta. And, for what Dave goes through this season, again, with this privileged perspective that he has and understanding, and what he comes to at the end with what it means to Gaeta and what Gaeta has been hoping for all this time, just fucking wrecked me, man. Like the moment you see him like crying in the dark and you're not sure what's going on, and when he comes out on that stage, I swear to God, I was crying my eyes out.
Yeah.
Like I had cold. It's like the same thing like you said. Season 1 ended, you had those cold chills. Like it had that feeling of a sports movie almost. Like, but to me, I feel like this one was even more than that because Gaeta was involved in it.
Yeah.
More from just the sidelines hyping him up. He was like the star, really. Yeah. And talking about it giving me cold chills a little bit. Like that finale was unbelievable to me.
It was really good. And to go from the performance that he was gonna have to what happened, it was
which is all ego, which is all his like privilege and like what can I do? What to stop me from doing?
Isn't that another thing that makes it like the first season too, though? Because remember the whole thing, he's going on the radio show and he's going to do that he's going to play that song about prison, which is him again, like reveling in his privilege. And trying to make a commentary. They're always smart enough to make Dave's self-awareness like the episode starts and his self-awareness is at a certain level. So he's got some self-awareness. By the end of this episode or the end of the season, his self-awareness has gone up a bit. So, but it's like they start off with him, and even in his argument with Gaeta, he has a point. Like you can see how Dave goes into that moment thinking he has a point of like, dude, what's your problem? Right. But it's because he hasn't been paying attention to Gaeta this whole time and thinking about Gaeta's emotions and investment this whole time that he's able to go into that situation and have that bravado and actually argue and not just listen, because you want Dave to just listen at that moment, but he can't. He's got to fight first. I think that friendship, that relationship, it's like last season, back to what I was saying, that at the end of the first season, like he made that choice. It partially was because everybody around him, no one wanted him to play that song about prison, but also he could tell in that moment that he would have been betraying Gaeta because Gaeta's in there vouching for him, even in the face of the question of, aren't you exploiting this guy? You know, which is what Kid Charlemagne, I think, is that not the radio guy?
Yeah, Charlemagne
the God.
Charlemagne the God. Who's like talking to him saying, don't you just bring this guy around to be your hype guy? Aren't you exploiting him? You know, and for Dave to then like redeem that moment by not doing something so solipsistic and navel gazing as playing that song that Benny, what's his name, Benny Blanco or whatever his name, wanted him to play. But like this season, it's the same thing again, but yeah, it's amped up. But that you're right. It's almost like it is a formula, but it is a spin on it. And I think the fact that, yeah, I mean, we keep saying his name, but this season, for me, it was all about Gaeta in so many ways, because I kept thinking they were going to spin out into like major melodrama with him. I kept thinking he was going to do something really rash, or he was going to hurt himself, or he was going to spin out of control. And then I kept realizing as I was thinking that, no, this show has built this character who's bipolar, and they've showed us the reality of that. They're not going to turn around and make it like something that brings him down. Like they're going to make it part of Gaeta's personality, but they're not going to make it like this source of cheesy melodrama, you know? And so I realized when you get to the end of that, they've did it a couple times throughout the season where you thought things were really going to turn bad for Gaeta, and then something goes his way, or just his resilience comes through. And I think that was kind of a theme of the season. And I really sort of appreciated that, because I think it would feel sort of cheap to have him, you know, do some of those melodramatic things that you might expect a cheesier drama would be like. Now we've got to do this. We've set up this character, but it's like he's trying and he's fighting all of his demons, you know. And I think that makes him a really, really interesting character, and in some ways more interesting than Dave, and a lot of ways more interesting than Dave, who, yeah, we are supposed to sort of look at him and be like, dude, what are you doing? All season long, he can't finish this album. Everyone around him is looking at him going, what is your problem? You know, like, why can't you just, and I relate to the performance anxiety he's feeling. So I'm not saying they made him thin at all. It's just that by the end of the season, you really were ready for him to just kind of shut up and make some music, you know, or do something.
Yeah, I think like one of the episodes that stands out in the season to me, like talking about Gaeta and like in kind of how he in ways that Dave never really even sees has like propped him up the whole season. Like that bar mitzvah episode.
Yeah.
When like Dave just completely blows it and like completely just ruins the opportunity, like whatever. Like it's like he's taking advantage of a situation. He's getting paid a lot of money to be, you know, to play this kid's bar mitzvah. These people are worshiping him, and he can't even do it. You know, he screws up.
He can't even handle it. Yeah.
And Gaeta, you see Gaeta come in and like kind of save the day at the end of the episode. Like he manages to be like, I got this. I got to make it right. I don't want this to end. You know, like, and Dave never even really sees that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And like that episode to me was kind of like a bookend to like the way the season ends with, you know, that blow up, and, you know, Dave never really understanding really what Gaeta's doing when Dave's not around.
Right.
Yeah.
And when him learning about like him being in that closet, rapping all the time, like coming up with stuff, him looking in the closet, like you could see the look on Dave's face where he was like that was a realization. Like that was a like, oh, this is like stuff that I don't even understand and know about. Like all that stuff just works so well, man. It's such a, man, so good. So good.
Yeah.
I don't know. The way they wrap it all up, just I feel like is so stealth, and like it's so effort. Like this show, I don't know. Like it feels like effortless. Like they just do such a good job at like wrapping it all up at the end of the season. It just it feeds so well into such a satisfying finale. But
well, I think that effortlessness comes from just how they can shift. They can have these really funny moments, really absurd moments. Again, like Atlanta, stuff where you're like, wait, is this really happening? Or is this like, what's going on here? But then the flip side of that is there will be these scenes that are just super uncomfortable and real. And like, that's the argument with Gaeta may have been one of the best yet, but also this season, there was that kind of attempt to reconcile with Allie and play that song for her that just was painful as fuck. And then that scene with his parents at the dinner table where they finds out about his dad's depression, how raw, but real. And also at the end of it, you realize, no, I'm in a world where these writers, these actors, they care about these characters. They're not presenting like a cynical, nihilistic view of people. They almost always show people coming through for each other in some way, or making space for each other in some way, even if the episode can end on a really kind of down note sometimes.
Right.
You know, that scene with his parents could have gone like 3 or 4 different ways before it ended in that kind of place of learning about each other and acceptance or something, and kind of laughing together. Or at least the joke once again is on him for being the way he is, you know. But I thought that was really beautiful the way they did that. And that's that whole song that he did last season with Ali, that was brought back this year, where he tried to recreate it early in the season with a new woman, and that didn't work. And then he played the song for what's his name, Andrew, is that his name?
I think it is Andrew,
his manager.
Yeah. Hold on, I've got the Wikipedia page up. It's Mike. Andrew's the actor. Andrew Santino is the actor. By the way, Christine Coe as Emma was the character whose name we couldn't think of a second ago. But like him hearing that song, it was a great moment too, because he's like, I don't know, he had such a nice reaction to this stuff that Dave had made, and we know that song has some kind of juice to it. And then to find that Allie's not comfortable with him releasing it, you know, I mean, that all just it's so complicated and thorny, and there's no easy way to feel about what the characters are going through.
In like the placement of, like, Doja Cat is legitimately one of the most popular artists right now, and that episode, I could almost say, was like a perfect episode, man. Like,
it was
it really is like a representation of what relationships have become with modern technology, and how people can miss each other. It's just, man.
And particularly Dave, and how he can trip himself up, you know.
Yes.
That was a great example of his worst qualities.
It's fucking getting in his own head, man.
Yeah.
All right, moving along.
Any
other TV shows?
White Lotus.
Oh my God, White Lotus.
I still need to see more of that show.
So Ronald, you saw the first episode though. What were your thoughts after watching the first episode of White Lotus?
I've seen the first episode, and I'll come in for like 10-minute blocks when Aaron's watching it. I'm in, man. Like, HBO captures this like very particular type of people in America, man. It just so good. Like, and it's not to like, it's not trying to make fun of them so much as like, these people are humanized in a way. They don't feel like parodies of like annoying people with all the privilege and none of the awareness. But those people are so good to see on camera while all these crazy things are going on. I'm in. I was very impressed.
You kind of nailed what it is that's so impressive about the show too, is it gets at that exact thing of like, I mean, I think ultimately the show is more concerned with class than it is with race or gender issues, but it definitely tackles all three. And the Mike White, I mean, he's done it before. He's done it throughout his career at different times, but the guy he's one of those great observers of human foibles. And I think that like, this is maybe one of the best things he's done. And the fact that it's written and directed by him all across the board. Yeah. I mean, it goes to some just amazing places. I started thinking I was going to watch a couple episodes last week, and I just ended up binging up until the moment, you know, where I could, then this finale came out. I think it makes you think about every time you've gone up to a concierge at a resort or a hotel and complained about anything, and that person has been like, oh yes, oh Mr. Walker, we're so sorry, you know, and you've been like, yeah, that feels right that you would treat me this way, you know. It really approaches that aspect, and I think I've always tried to err on the side of being, I mean, I've worked in the service industry. So I see people as very humanized who are doing the tasks that make places like that run. However, I think this show points out that even if you are sort of quote unquote woke, you will still trip over some things when you're interacting with people whose job is to make you feel good about your choices, not just their performance, but about being here in this place. And they're trying to present this world. And you can like think that person. And I sometimes run into that even with like a contractor or somebody comes and does something at my house. If they're so friendly and they leave, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm friends with them. And then I stop and I'm like, no, you paid them and they were nice because you were paying them. And that's fine.
Right.
That's just fine. You know, that's still nice, but it's not the same thing as like being friendly with somebody. And I will say this, just money gives you power over people, and people who don't seem to be aware of that or don't seem to think about the ramifications of that. This show is full of them. I thought some performers were just incredible though across this season. I thought Steve Zahn did some career best stuff. I thought Connie Britton was incredible. Jennifer Coolidge, holy shit. I mean, like, breaks your heart in every scene she's in, but has a moment that is like both played completely seriously and almost ironically, because she's having this emotional epiphany, but we know that it's at the expense of this woman that she's befriended. And even the woman she's befriended, who's like, I see an opportunity. This woman might want to help me. This rich woman might want to help me. And the way that changes you when you're around someone who might help you, and you start changing your behavior to be like what they want you to be, you know, everybody comes away from those interactions a little dirtier and a little feeling a little less about themselves. And yes, you said it, Ronald, this show presents them as monsters, but it also completely humanizes these monsters. And the lead performance for me, I guess there's no real lead on this show. What's the actor's name, Steve? Do you know the guy who plays Armand?
I do not know. Yeah, he's probably the lead though.
Let me see. The actor is Murray Bartlett, who I think has been in a few other things before, but this is the first thing I've really seen him in. And I mean, and his performance kind of is the story of the show. The way that his character treads this line of kind of being in the middle of that dichotomy I was talking about, where it's like he's got people under him who he kind of abuses, but he's also catching a lot of abuse from these rich people. He's the manager of the resort, the hotel, the White Lotus. So you get to see him do both. You get to see him both kind of be imperious and abuse the people that look up to him, and also have to kind of, you know, lick the boots of these people that he's disgusted by.
Yeah. I thought the season was great. I mean, I don't want to get too spoilery until Ronald finishes it, but I think that, again, we talked about this a little bit last week, talking about the was it 9 Perfect Strangers or whatever it's called. Like these ensemble comedies, like these I don't know, prestige dramas, whatever they are,
dramedies, maybe
they're called dramedies. Especially the ones like Ronald was saying that HBO is involved in. They're so consistent, and I mean they're and to see Mike White kind of be able to do this show, I'm a fan of his. And I would say if anybody has not seen more recently, he had a movie called Brad Status that no one saw, a great movie. Just to kind of, he's been out.
The way you said it, just
no, it's true. Like no one saw
though.
that
No,
movie.
you're right.
Like
you're right.
Nobody knows about it. And anytime I mention it, like people that I know have been watching White Lotus, I say like, you know, have you seen Brad Status? Like, you know, people maybe know him from School of Rock more commonly,
or Chuck and Buck, maybe even
Chuck and Buck, maybe.
Enlightened, which was his creation as well for HBO.
Right.
Enlightened.
I don't know. It's just like, this is a moment for him, and I think it is probably the best thing he's done, especially because it's like he is the writer director of all the whole season. But yeah, the performances are great. It's a beautiful show too, like shot in Hawaii, and I think like the young cast really stands out too. You know, one of the guys, the son, Fred Heckinger, he's been in a bunch of stuff recently. He was in that, was it Woman in the Window, which was a really bad movie, and he was not good in it either. But I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff recently. He was in the Fear Street 94 episode. Right. But he's got a lot of stuff coming up. But I thought he was great in the show. Like, he is probably, one of the redeeming characters. I don't know, one of the optimistic characters of the show, maybe, if there are any. But I just think the young cast. I think he's
the most optimistic, because the other sympathetic characters are embroiled in such a tragic turn of events. The sister and her friend Paula you would say maybe Paula is someone who you kind of root for and admire, but she makes a colossal mistake that really is like not just so much take her character down, but I do think that the brother you're talking about, he kind of emerges with the most hope attached to him at the end of the story.
Yeah. But across the board, the cast was great. And I thought the story was really interesting. And I know they renewed it for a second season. A different story. Maybe I think they were saying they at another like White Lotus resort, different cast, things like that. They have that kind of that cool flexibility to kind of do that from season to season if it continues to be as good as this one. But yeah, Steve Zahn is like probably one of like the most underrated guys in acting that I have loved for decades. Like I love everything. I will see anything he's in, and I think he's so good in most of the stuff that he's in. But I thought he was great in this show, and I hope I get to see him more. Like he's not in enough stuff anymore. But yeah, him and Connie Britton's scenes together are just, I mean, we love Connie Britton. I mean, she's great. And she's in a lot recently, it seems, but this is definitely the best of what she's been doing in the recent year or so. But yeah, Ronald, we'll talk more when you finish it out if you're gonna dive into it. So we can talk about it a little more when you finish it.
Yeah, and just to mention a couple more people, since we're mentioning everybody, Alexandra Daddario does things I've never seen her pull off in a performance before as well. Natasha Rothwell as Belinda is incredible. She's just perfect for the character she's playing. And I loved seeing what's his name, Jake Lacey. I love seeing him take his he's that boyfriend that you want the character to have in the movie or the show, you know, like I love seeing him take that steady, likable guy character and twist it into something else. Because this is that, I mean, even the monsters are relatable on this show. So he's like this spoiled, privileged guy, but you sort of see why he is the way he is. And a fraction of what he's doing is, if you ever, Ronald, gotten to a place and it's not the right room or it's not what they promised you, and it gets under your skin, like we all have that part of our personalities. The way that he goes, he just completely gets, like, he lets it get festering with him that like they did me wrong. And so he's this super privileged guy who has like had something go slightly wrong. And there's like no one more, you should fear no one more than a super privileged person who has had something go slightly wrong.
Right.
They take it so personal, man.
Yep.
Yeah, all the goodwill he earned from Obvious Child is burned up. I mean, in some cases, in some way, he's so good. He's great in this show too. So
cool.
All right,
let's talk about some movies now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's mention a movie or two for sure.
Ronald, you saw Snake Eyes, right?
I did.
I saw it.
What did you think? Oh, you did. Cool. Okay, what did you guys think of Snake Eyes?
The first thing I thought after it was done was Shang-Chi is going to be a really good movie.
I had the same thought, Ronald.
Is that crazy?
John, like, what poor timing does this movie have to come out a month and a half or two before Shang-Chi?
The problem is, this is not a terrible movie, but because it's competing,
no, it's really not that bad.
It's competing with the Black Panther of this year.
Martial arts superhero movies.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
It's horrible timing. It's horrible.
It's
way more fun than I thought it was gonna be.
It's
like
so fun.
I just was like, I was 3/4 of the way through it. I'm like, Aaron, like, I kind of like this movie. Like,
well, okay, you know why? Henry Golding is really good. He's really good.
He is really good.
I don't really understand. I don't understand acceptance for things you do terribly to somebody, but Henry Golding was incredible. Everybody in the movie was really solid. And there were points where I was like, man, I think I could watch another G.I. Joe movie if it came out.
I know. I was going to say they took all the elements of, like, I didn't see the second G.I. Joe movie. I saw the first one, and I mean, I barely remember being able to pay attention to it. Right. And that was being a kid growing up, loving the comics, loving the toy line, loving the animation, the show. That, I mean, all that stuff is really the basis. Like, there's a core period during that stuff. Those characters were the ones that the movie iteration seems to be based on, or seems to want to be based on. And I just this doesn't feel like the thing that I liked, or whatever I liked about it when I was a kid. I just began to think, maybe I just don't give a shit about G.I. Joe being a new thing. Like, I can enjoy what it was when I was a kid. But this sort of got at the fun that I think you can have with this world. It's like it's a goofier version of something like Mission Impossible or something like that, but you can have these big stunt extravaganzas with sort of like simple man on a mission type stories, or person on a mission type stories, or team on a mission, whatever kind of story it's going to be. But I started to see the ways in which, like, I think you can make that G.I. Joe concept kind of fun in a movie. And I think this kind of got at that a little bit. And I do think like there was nothing, even though, okay, Snake Eyes didn't speak in the comics and in the show, and he had his face covered all the time. I think if we're going to say, no, how about if Snake Eyes talks just like anybody and he's really handsome, so we want to see his face? Does that change the character that much? And it was like, not really. He was always just kind of a badass anyway. And I think the Storm Shadow thing, like this movie could also be called Storm Shadow, and it's kind of an origin story of another character. And it all felt kind of cool, but for some reason it like didn't crack the like Shang-Chi enthusiasm, and also like I said, the Mission Impossible action stunt, whatever. But it felt like it felt very confident. It felt like it knew what it was trying to do, and the story actually had enough twists in it, and it, like, the characters were very clearly delineated, which I think is a big part of a story like this, where midway into it, you're not confusing characters for other characters. The intentions of everybody are pretty clear. But I'm with you, Ronald. There's a lot of like people doing horrible things to each other and kind of sweeping it under the rug to try to just get onto the next scene. And I guess that's sort of that's the world we're in.
I'm like, what kind of betrayal is this? Like, I don't know. How could you forgive someone for that? But
we've got to stop. Right. We've got to stop Kenta. He's got the jewel, and he's like, yeah, okay, let's stop him. But it's like, you know why he has the jewel? Why? Because I handed it to him about 10 minutes ago.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. And then he watches him. And it's. But it was fun.
Yeah,
it surprised me so much how fun it was, man. Like, I'd watch it again. I'd like show it to somebody else. It sound wise, it was pretty damn amazing. Were those electric motorcycles, by the way?
I was wondering about that.
It looked. I think so.
Sound.
They made no noise, and you can hear. So like,
they're ninjas. They're ninjas, Ronald.
Ninja cycles.
Sense.
That explains it.
It makes sense. There was some like Fast and the Furious moves on the highway that I really enjoyed.
I like that sequence, like on the car carrier, like when. When they're like swinging around and like kicking people, like some of the fight choreography in that scene was really good.
Yeah,
it's such a weird conversation because I'm glad to hear that we're all on the same page, because I was like, am I going to come in on this saying like it was a lot of fun and they hated it? Because it is like a weird, like, they actually have a decent movie that just unfortunately came out like, real talk, came out like the same month Black Widow came out, and the month and a half before Shang-Chi. Like, what horrible timing for a movie that, like, I don't know that they needed more G.I. Joe movies, but they're like, I guess we're going to do some. We're going to try some origin stories.
Yeah.
Where we basically recast characters that we've already shown in the other two G.I. Joe movies. Like Scarlet and even Storm Shadow, like different people were in those roles. But not that I mind seeing Samara Weaving. I love her, but someone from the production came out very clearly saying this is a reboot, not a spinoff. Like, this is intended to be a total reboot. Yeah, but they were like, so all the other GI Joe stuff doesn't matter.
According to the producer, was it Lorenzo de Bonaventura or something? I might be saying that name wrong, but it's on a bunch of movies. But was basically saying, almost like saying, I don't know why people keep calling this a spinoff series, or of the other movies, because this is very clearly a reboot. And I think that's because Henry Golding, like, I think, was it Ray Wise? Ray Wise.
Well,
Ray Park.
He was in the second one, but I don't know if Snake Eyes was in the first one. Yeah, I think he was. I don't know. I guess maybe he played him in that too.
It just feels like a different take on the character. So I feel like it definitely feels like a new version. But I think it's smart just to kind of leave those versions behind.
Can I ask you guys a question before we get off of this movie?
Yeah.
So he comes to this gang. He's talking to the head of security, this really cool, very, very smart action star that's like, she can fight, she can do all this stuff. She's in Japan with a British accent. He's from America, right? and he has an American accent. Okay, but couldn't he have just had a British accent and been like he moved from? I didn't understand why he had an American accent and the lady was in Japan with a British accent when they could have just said he's an expat, British dad, came to America for a little bit, still had an accent, made it to Japan. Why the fuck was this?
But you're all in on the red crystal that turns people into fire.
Yeah, because that's what we're
got it. Because that's what they do. That's right. That's right.
The last time I had a red crystal, I blew up a fucking car, man.
Now that tracks. That tracks. You know.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, there's a moment when they're talking where I was like, which one of them is gonna make a comment about their accent? And I was like, it's probably gonna be Ronald.
It drove me crazy. I was like,
I bet. I knew it would.
But it was
hilarious.
Such a fun movie, man. See Snake Eyes. I never thought I'd ever say see Snake Eyes.
Did they break the window? Because it's on video on demand. It's on like the Peabody channels now. So they broke the 45 days.
Yeah. So it was almost exactly a month from the day it was released.
Right. Okay, that's what I thought.
Which is very strange, man. Like I think they were just like, it's not doing as well as we thought it was going to do. And like I said, PVOD seems to be a good in-between for wherever it goes next. And I think it's going to do really well. Word of mouth is going to get this thing. If they cut it down, it's $20 right now. If they get it down to like 15 or even 12, I think it's going to do gangbusters, man. It's going to do really well.
Nice. Okay. And what? So we got, is there one more?
Did you see The Green Knight?
I did not see it, but you can mention it. I know John talked about it before. Yeah. What do you think of it?
It's one of my favorite movies of the year.
Good.
Same.
It is. So I think a lot of the movies, like, so we watch things like Game of Thrones, where it's like this sort of conversational sort of Mad Men, very, very dialogue based with some action and stuff like that. This feels like it's ambiance. It's a lot about like the journey, the feel of things, the look of things. And it is a gorgeous movie with a lot of like trippy visuals. If you're coming in here looking for a straightforward knight goes to talk to a man about a thing in another town, you aren't getting it in this movie. You're getting like essentially like, I'd say, I mean, A24 really knows how to do things on a budget, man. If I want them to do everything, like if they need to give some lessons to some bigger studios that are doing these like, you know, $200 million movies. How are they managing to make these movies look like gold, visual gold? And even down to one of the, I'm not going to give it away, but one of the characters that was in the movie that was clearly CGI that didn't look too bad. Like they just, lighting was good on the CGI character. They have something down that I don't know what their secret is, because they have to have a lot of secrets. But the way they do things for the budget that they do things and the stories that they tell, the choices that they're making, they are the best studio to me. I mean, there's no competition. Like it's so, they're so ahead in terms of like budget versus story versus delivery of that. Yeah.
And getting the creative people like David Lowery as a director is somebody who always has a very specific tonal thing going on with his movies and is always very well worked out conceptually. It reminds me of Robert Eggers, the guy that did Witch and The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
You listen to him in an interview talk about the movie, there's always such a rich creative concept behind what he's doing. And I think that might be one of the ways that this movie, The Green Knight, Ronald, like does what you're talking about, because it uses, let's put them in locations that have their own kind of awe to them. Let's get performers and the costuming and everything, like the way that movie, it feels so ancient in a way. Like it makes you realize how long ago, like almost 1,000 years ago, this Arthurian era might have been. And just do you know what I mean about the kind of eeriness and how remote everything seems and how gray everything seems? And it seems like even the best person with the best fortune still has a kind of gray eerie life. And yeah, that journey you're talking about, there's a very dreamlike quality to the journey that Gowan goes on, don't you think? Like, and Dev Patel is incredible, and I'm all for that kind of casting. Like, let's just forget this whole idea that everyone has to be some Shakespearean white guy. I love just saying, no, it's an Arthurian legend. Let's just get a good actor to play this character, and someone who has a really great look to them. But I think that, I think there's a lot that makes the Green Knight special, and definitely the visuals and that aspect of the storytelling are a huge part of it.
I really enjoyed it, man. It's a great fucking movie.
Can't wait to watch it.
So are we going to do The Night House? Is that our final item on the menu?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think that's our timed perfectly to today. Comes out today in theaters. The Night House.
The Night
directed
House.
by David Bruckner, starring Rebecca Hall. Who else? Sarah Goldberg's in it.
Yeah.
Vonnie Curtis Hall's in it. I forget what the husband's name is, but I don't know. What do you guys think of The Night House?
I really like Rebecca Hall.
I really like Rebecca Hall too.
And that's the review.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I've seen some people talking about this movie recently that were excited to see it, and having seen it, didn't want to rain on their parade, but I had to give like a little short. I wanted to give a short comment, so I feel like I can sum up my feelings pretty well. I've well practiced on this. I thought it had great atmosphere and a couple of really cool sequences, but ultimately not much of a story. And that's kind of where it left me. It's like I feel like that third act was really missing some kind of something, but I thought the kind of journey of discovery the character was on, and the particulars of the mystery that's being sorted out are pretty engrossing, and it's an interesting scenario that the character finds themselves in. But I just didn't think that the story around that scenario felt like it just is one of those movies that kind of ends. After some kind of cool buildup. The slow burn part of the story was actually, the first half hour or so was pretty effective, making me feel creeped out to be, if I was this person, I would be creeped out to be having these experiences that she was having. So,
yeah. I think that, she's really good in the movie actually. And I think that, in most things that we've seen her in recently, but I do kind of agree. I feel like for a movie that's almost an hour and hour 45, hour 50.
Yeah.
Like, it does feel like it moves pretty quick, but it does feel like it is missing a pretty important part of an arc or like a narrative. Like there's something missing from the story to get to what I do think is actually a pretty cool reveal. Like yes. I kind of did like the reveal at the end of the movie without spoiling anything, but simply the reveal idea, like the idea of it is what I'm saying I like.
Yeah. You're
like,
talking about what's
going
on with her dead husband, what he was doing.
Right. And I don't think it was really executed that well. And I think that's because something does feel like it was missing to get us from, A to Z, or to kind of fill that gap. There's some really cool shots in the movie. I do like the idea of like, this house by the lake, and there's this like, this element of a boat, and there's a lot of imagery and symbolism in the movie that really plays well into what we're talking about as this idea, the reveal, that I think is really tied into it nicely. It's just not executed very well, I don't think. And I think that it kind of struggles to get to a real end, and it just feels really abrupt, and then the movie's over. And, it wasn't really for me, I don't think. Ronald, what do you think, Ronald?
Sometimes when I'm watching a movie about a woman, sometimes I want a woman to tell a story. Sometimes I feel like the sense of dread, the sense of like all the things. I know it's a weird thing, man. Like the first thing I thought was like this. Sometimes I want the story to be told a little differently. And it feels like I as a guy, I know what makes me scared. I know what drives me crazy. And it ain't the same thing as like what the things that make women scared a lot of the times. A lot of the times, like, we are the fear. We are the dread. Dudes are capable of some awful things. So like sometimes I think that like the perspective that we put on a woman's character doesn't feel authentic to me sometimes. And I can feel sometimes that like this horror film feels like a man writing a woman being in this situation. And that's the first. I mean, I'm talking to Aaron about this she clocked out, by the way. She was like done like 15 minutes into it. But it's a thing that I've been very cognizant about when it comes to like narratives and stories. It's just you hear enough people talk about like you know our at least Steve, your wife is into murder shows, right?
She's into murder. More importantly,
Yeah,
she also likes murder shows.
Okay, and John, your wife into murder shows?
Oh yeah, it's America's pastime right now,
man.
right?
And there's something about the way that they talk about the dread of dudes that I feel like they could have captured a little better, and it just wasn't a well told story. More atmosphere than story. And I hated that because it was so good. The atmosphere that it created was so good, and you're right. The like twist in it was really unreal. Like I was like, oh my god, that's what it is.
Right.
That was crazy. But like, I don't need all of this shit to tell me this. Like, that could have been a better way to tell this story. He could have been alive too. Like, I don't know why. I mean, not to give anything away, but like that part is in the trailer of the.
Yeah, no, I think that I honestly thought about that, and if anyone who sees the movie will know what we mean. The decision to start the story with her husband already dead was a real choice narratively. Yes. That I think for certain things to work, you need that to be the case. But I also think that you're right that a lot of what the mystery is around and the twist doesn't need the supernatural element. Well, it needs a supernatural element, but not the same. It's an interesting thing. It's like two supernatural elements are kind of colliding. You're kind of thinking it's one type of thing, and it turns out to be something else. So, yeah, I thought of that same question. It was like, oh, would this movie have been helped in any way by getting to see the husband as a living person? You know what I mean? And not just in memories and flashbacks and whatever. But yeah. So I guess we're all kind of lukewarm on this one.
I would
skip it.
I'd probably go with a skip or hold up, wait for it.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Hold up.
Don't see that shit. Man.
Just say say them all. Hold up, wait for it.
I'm reminding myself we kind of got out of the habit of using them.
Our current listeners may not even know what that is. If you look at our logo somewhere on our art, it says it's got our scale, but it's hold up is don't go see it. Like hold up, wait for it was wait for it to be out on home video, which now has a different meaning. It just means wait for it to be free or wait for it to be on a service you're already subscribing to. We were ahead of our time. And then go ahead means see it now however you can.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. Like it also seems like a movie looking back on some of the marketing, like it's the marketing's off. I feel I don't know if Searchlight just doesn't know how to sell the movie, but I think like trailer is a little misleading. It falls into that same conversation of like the movie, like Ronald is saying, like it's more atmosphere than story in some ways. And I think that's a little misleading from the way the trailer looks. And I worry that people that will see it, I mean, obviously the three of us weren't really big fans of it, but I mean, people that are going to be pulled in simply by the trailer, I think they'll be even more disappointed by it. Because of the way that it kind of falls into that. It's a little more stylized of a trailer than the movie actually is. There were some cool shots though. I gotta say, like
so
when she starts like seeing like the way the framing is like of the house, like the silhouettes, and then the camera shifts, and you're like, oh, that's just the way the wall is hitting the shadow. Like that shit was cool. Like
the first time that happened was the fucking creepiest thing when there's like a basement door and it opens. It's like with a glass door in it. And it's kind of swinging behind her, but just slowly moving. And you see there's a moment where like the shadow of the window and the curtain in the background,
it looks like
it becomes a man and he turns and looks at her, you just go, but then it's like the door keeps moving and the shadow changes and you don't see, and it's just like, Yeah, stuff like that was really inventive.
Creative.
Maybe they could have done more with that he was like the architect of the house, and that the house was revealing him in these interesting ways. That almost feels like it could have been a whole different way
to pursue that.
And also the idea of the kind of mirror house, the sort of nightmare version of the house, I thought that was visually, like you were talking about the boat, all that stuff was really well done, where you don't really know where you are in terms of reality versus dream or something. And the girls were like running past her in the woods and stuff.
That part was
really creepy, creepy.
Man.
So yeah, we're saying it's got some moments, but it doesn't seal the deal.
That's why I'm checking it out.
Okay, I guess anyone who really wants to be surprised about this movie, we're basically at the end. So as always, you've made our day. But if anybody doesn't care, did the friend seem like was she a red herring? Was her worried nature the whole time meant to make us think that she was somehow involved, and then for her not to be was supposed to be the twist? But it really felt like, what an annoying person. if that's just how she acts.
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay,
this needed like a third and fourth draft, man.
Your read is spot on.
Like a raw script, man. Like she was very much like, you sure you don't want to stay?
Hey, don't look into this. Like, don't dig. Don't worry. Nothing good's gonna come of this. Yeah, like
golly.
Yeah. No, you got that right.
Not Rebecca Hall's fault, man.
I actually liked how brittle she was. I thought she was really funny, almost in a dark way, as far as when she was interacting with people. Like when that student's mom came in to talk about something.
Oh yeah, that's good.
She was like, just laid it on her. I thought that that informed that character so much. And also, honestly, if you really think about how fresh that is, this character, it didn't happen months ago. It happened like a few days ago at the beginning of the story. It makes her behavior so much like that performance is really good. Like she does a great job of performing someone who is just on the edge of keeping it together and really hasn't figured out how to exist in this new world that she's in yet. I thought she did a good job of playing the rawness of that character.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Then they tried to make it seem like the neighbor was kind of darty.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, what's going on? He's trying to, that was weird.
He was kind of that way too. You don't need to be checking into these woods out here by yourself. I hate to see you out here. You're right. I mean, I do think that, yes, they were wanting us to think what's up with everybody.
Yeah.
But the friend was the only character who it's like, why is she acting this way? Like, what is her goal here? Yeah. What friend would ever say, don't dig? Your friend would be totally like, if whatever you find out, tell me, because I want to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me help. All right, man. Well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
As we tend to do with these episodes recently, we go through a ton of shit. And that's because we're watching a ton of stuff. And we kind of mentioned that last week. It was like, it just seems like crazy how much is coming out. Like things breaking breaking the theatrical window, coming out early, like getting, Snake Eyes coming out early this week. You being able to check out Green Knight because it had its little, it had like a special, viewing online. And then they came out, video on demand the day after. It's just like there's so many things coming out every week. So like we're trying to keep up. So we'll kind of keep pumping these episodes with as much that we can talk about as we, see week to week. But it just seems like do you guys feel the same? Like that there's so much
to
watch?
Stuff,
man, it's like,
I was thinking about it in relation to like the fact that we are doing that Watch 'Em All Nightmare on Elm Street, and we theoretically need to wrap that up because we're planning on doing another Watch 'Em All for the fall, and that's actually connected to a little bit of a date and time. And I was like, how are we even going to do that? We're going to have to find a new week in every month to an extra one.
Yeah. But and I mean, that said, like there's movies coming out today that we haven't even seen yet. Like Reminiscence comes out on HBO Max and in theaters, which I really want to see actually. And then, within a week or so, we'll be talking hopefully about Shang-Chi, but I don't know. We'll see how that works out. Oh, and the week after next, Candyman comes out. So, well, actually, no, next week Candyman comes out. So hopefully we'll be seeing that. We'll be talking about that next week. Man, so many movies, but we'll keep up with it as long as you keep listening.
Right.
Whoever you are listening, we appreciate it.
Yes.
Movieshmovie.com is the website. You can go there, find all of our past episodes, listen to them right there, or you can jump off into whatever podcast app you prefer to listen in. They're all linked directly on that page. We're on all social media pages. They're all the /Movie. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. You can find us in all those channels. But if you subscribe, just every episode, just kind of ask, like, if you can leave a review or a rating, any kind of feedback, if it's on that platform, or even if you see that share button, just kind of share a link with a friend, maybe of this episode, or maybe a prior one that you really liked of the podcast. We'd really appreciate it. It definitely helps get the word out. And, when people search for movie podcasts, because there's not enough apparently, maybe it'll help ours maybe rise a little bit in those search results and help more people find the show.
You should tell people, like, if you're listening, let some friends know. There's a podcast where like three guys talk about movies.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
it's
I don't know if people know this is happening. I mean, this is something. It's our bad marketing that people don't know this is a thing.
So do what John said. Like, help make them realize that we, this special thing,
this format exists.
It's here for their taking if they would like to. Yeah, you guys got anything else you want to mention before we wrap up?
No.
You good?
Yeah.
I think we'll all say go see Snake Eye. It's fun.
Go see Snake Eyes.
Or rent, get a Peabody. It's home. Be safe. Be smart. Watch Snake Eyes. All right, cool. We'll see you guys next week. As always, you made our day. Thanks.
Bye.